Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Saturday afternoon, I think it's July the 12th, and we got the sacred fire roaring here. Got some of that dry wood going. It is hot here in Appalachia. Hope you're enjoying life wherever you are. And this week, as I have been pondering life, as always, one of the things I've been guided to that I wanted to bring up today is the concept of fear. So 2 weeks ago, I did that video called "Our Women Live in Fear," which is still getting comments and still getting views, much more than anything I've ever done. It stands out amongst all the videos. So I got 130 or 40 videos, and this one stands out. So this week, as I was asking for guidance, and most of my guidance comes really early in the morning when I'm exercising and moving my body. And the guidance was about fear, but in this particular case, it was about fear from a man's perspective. So that's what I wanted to try to address, with the proviso that I am not an expert. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a dude in the arena. Okay, I'm the dude in the arena, the man in the arena, who has lived a lot of life and has explored his life deeply to try to understand himself. And wind's really picking up. There's a storm coming, I can tell. There's going to be a quick storm here. So what is it that makes men afraid in this society? So we heard from hundreds of women over the last 2 weeks. If you read the comments, and they're still coming, hundreds of women about our women live in fear. So what is it that makes our men live in fear? And I was asking for guidance on this all week. And it's, to me, from my perspective, in my own fears, like many things in my life, it's multidimensional. For example, there was obviously some fear when I was in the womb. There was a lot of shame because of that being conceived out of wedlock in the 1950s and such. My father would have carried a lot of fear because of the way he was raised by his father, where there's a lot of violence, a lot of beating of my father and his two brothers. So that fear gets transmitted, generation to generation. Woo, wind's really coming now. Wow. May have to cut this one short. But anyways, so there's a generational transformation. Now, you younger guys, the younger men, you've gone through two more generations, since I'm old enough to be the grandfather of some of you guys. You've gone through two more generations of, as I said in one video in Healing the Divine Masculine, we have an epidemic of abandonment issues. We have a lot of physical trauma. We have a lot of pharmaceuticals that are a problem for you younger guys, especially. All that started with the year I was born, by the way, basically. We have problems where all of our boys, and starting really with my generation or a little bit before, have been raised by women. This is the topic of the next video in the Healing the Divine Masculine. That's about the nice guy. and why we are a generation of, or three generations now, of nice guys instead of true, heartfelt, compassionate warriors. So we have trauma, we have abandonment, we have drugs. You younger guys have a lot of really bad food. That's part of it. That is a part of it. Trust me, because I know when I went to a very grounding carnivore diet, I noticed the change in me 3 years ago. Um, but I think all of that is a part of the picture. But there's one thing that, for me, stands out. And as I'm asking about it, I have to put some wood on the fire. As I was asking about it this week, the answer that I got, the word that came up was confusion. Now, why? What does that mean? Why is there confusion amongst our men? And this goes back to an Esther Pearl video that I saw a couple weeks ago, where she lays out a good case of why there's confusion for men. Men, most of us in this modern society, we go daily, we leave the house, first of all. We go to jobs that don't feed the soul. They're not grounding. If you've ever watched any of my videos, I talk a lot about being grounded. Mother Earth, right? This is why I sit on this, to be grounded, okay? Because we have these rubber soles on, so we're not grounded. We have to be grounded. My tailbone right through here, grounded. So we have men, our whole society is filled with men going to jobs, most of them staring at screens, ungrounded, unfulfilled, not feeding their soul, not spending time with their sons, okay? Not doing manly physical things, which I've talked about a lot, all right? Lifting rocks and lifting wood, and that's what I do. I was crawling around underneath my house today. That's why I'm so sweaty. All right, manly physical things. This is what this man's body is built for, is to do physical things. To bend, to twist, to reach, right? Squat, it's physical. It's all physical. And we don't do that anymore. We sit and go doot, 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 doot at this television, right? That programs us in a certain way to be weak, to be afraid. But there's a massive amount of confusion, I believe, in the men's, I'll call it the men's mass consciousness. Now, I know there's a groundswell coming up of men who are getting into men's groups and doing manly and really trying to figure this out. And I've talked about my men's group and how disappointed I was with 2 weeks ago when I posted that video about our women live in fear. But, they're doing the best they can. But at the same time, we have a long way to go. But I do believe that the biggest aspect of fear in men, deep, I'm talking, ladies, I'm talking deep down inside of a man, what they project through their bad behavior, their sexual advances, whatever it is, all right, their inability to control their emotions, their inability to control their temper, maybe even their physicalness, all right, all of this deep down, rooted deep down, is that little 5-year-old that's right here that is crying for help, crying for love, and is confused about his role in this society. That's what I have been guided to this week. Confusion about our role in this society. And there's that meme that goes around that I've talked about before. Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. We are at the weak men create hard times phase. All right. And there's a lot that goes into that. One of the other things I've talked about, which I have a whole set of videos on, is the lack of the rite of passage from boyhood to manhood. So we have all these boys running around in men's bodies, yours truly included, right? Who didn't understand, were never taught what it means to be a man in this society. All right, it's tough, and it's we're each coming to this. Men, I mean, we're all coming to this one at a time, one at a time, and that's what I see all over social media with men's group and Robert Glover and G.S. Youngblood and Connor Beaton and all these influencers and book writers and stuff who are trying to continue the work of the Robert Bly's and the Robert Gillette and the David Dietas of the world, who started right back in 1989, 1990 with Iron John and books like that. The Way of the Superior Man, The Peaceful Warrior, Dan Millman, etc., etc. All right, those guys were at the forefront 35 years ago, understanding that there was a problem, understanding that men and the masculine role needed to be looked at deeply, and they had some success. Getting a little smoky here. They had some success. Those books are still out there, and there's many more after that, but we have a long way to go. All right, so from my own perspective and my own experience, there is no easy solution. It's for me, it's not as simple as, well, go do Byron Katie's The Work or go do neuro linguistic programming. I think it's a lot more than that. My own experience, it's been a combination of things, and these videos are a part of that. Being the man in the arena and being vulnerable to talk about these things is a big part of that. A big part of that process of reconnecting with the warrior, the king inside. Ayahuasca and my 4 trips to Costa Rica have been a big part of that. Okay. Being alone for the last 3 years, pretty much in exploring my past and coming to grips with myself is a big part of that. Changing my diet was a big part of that. All of these things contributed to what I have called in that series of videos, healing the divine masculine. To take that boy through the rite of passage into manhood. And I hope that everybody, the men especially, will understand that there's no red or blue pill, as much as we're sold that idea, right? There isn't, that doesn't, to me, that doesn't exist. We have to make a commitment every day and to bring in all these different pieces. Think about it as physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, right? Each one of them needs something. That you could look at it that way. All right. You could look at it, you might go into sound healing, which I have done numerous times. I've done astral traveling through sound healing, through sound sessions. Okay. I'm getting smoked out here. It's coming like right at me. So you have to excuse me. Right in the eyeball. I have to stand up for a minute. But so I hope that everybody will understand this. Everybody has a different perspective on this. All right. But I don't think that there's a simple solution, and I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. But I do think that there are a whole bunch of things out there. This is just the way I work. There's a bunch of different things out there that we can pull from that will we have to find what resonates with us, ourself, our inner self, capital S, self, and take the time to go through this process, to look at your fear. And when you're afraid, ask yourself, whether it's that little 5-year-old, whether it's coming from your father or your mother. I'll give you an example of from the mother. Since I was raised without a father, my mother was a Depression era child. So she was born in 1922. So she came of age during the 1930s, where the U.S. was in a depression. My grandfather lost his automobile dealership in 1933 when Roosevelt and the bankers closed the banks. And they had it rough. They had it rough. And so I was raised with this, what I call the mentality of scarcity. So I have this, I've thought about this a lot over the last 20 years. I have this one deep rooted fear, which I don't think about much anymore, but there was a period when I thought about it a lot. And that fear was the fear of being destitute. Do you understand? You know, homeless, living underneath the viaduct, you know, something like that. That was my deepest fear for a long time. The fear of being destitute. And that's a generational fear, right? That comes from having a Depression era mother, you know, hearing things like the most important thing in the world is a roof over your head and food on the table. You know? So think about the words you heard as a child and see if that correlates with any of your fears, any of your really deeply rooted fears. You got to dig deep into yourself. All right? Let me know in the comments, especially the men, okay? Especially the men, because we all got to come to grips with this. We've got to face this head on. All right? It's imperative that we do this, which means we need to talk about it, which is why I'm the man in the arena. All right? So 100 or 200 people will click on this video, and some of you, it will resonate, and let me know how it resonates so we can, because other people read your comments and it helps them. All right? And then some of us, we can just be vulnerable together. All right? That's what we got to do. So I hope this helps. We live in a fear-based society, and we need to come to grips with it. We need to deal with it head on. All right? So here we go. Cosmic energy, earth energy, heart energy. Send loving heart energy out to all beings, all dimensions, all timelines, all realities. May this day be filled with compassion, loving kindness, courage. Until tomorrow.